The iron gates of Easton Academy yawned open at 7:30 sharp, admitting a morning procession of gleaming SUVs and satin-painted sports cars. Chauffeurs in crisp uniforms stepped out first, scanning for paparazzi, while a sea of well-pressed students adjusted monogram blazers and compared Swiss watches that cost more than a teacher's yearly salary. Amid this parade rolled a single, battered bicycle. Its chain clicked on every turn, and its one silver frame had faded to a sullen gray. The rider, Sophie Blake, wore the standard Easton uniform, but on her it looked almost plain. No designer scarf, no gold cufflinks, no diamond-studded hairpin. Her book bag, patched in 3 different places, was slung across her shoulder like a loyal old friend. A security guard stepped forward, prepared to wave her toward the back entrance, reserved for delivery vans. Sophie braked gently, raised the visor on her matte helmet, and smiled. "Good morning. Registration is straight ahead, right?" The guard hesitated, thrown by her poise, the steady gray eyes, the soft but unmistakable British lilt. He nodded and stepped aside. Sophie thanked him, pedaled to the courtyard, and parked beside a marble fountain where koi swirled beneath lily pads. Students stopped to stare, whisper, and smirk. A few phones lifted for a quick video. Captions would appear minutes later. "Hillbilly on Wheels at Easton, new scholarship charity case?" From a far louder engine, a midnight blue Maybach purred onto gravel drive and halted in front of the administration building. The chauffeur jumped out to open the rear door with theatrical flourish. Vanessa Grant emerged in a blush-pink wrap dress that flattered her honey-toned skin, her stilettos clicking like castanets on the stone. A hush fell over the courtyard. Vanessa loved that hush, nurtured it, lived for it. She tossed her caramel curls, inspected the morning light, then whispered to the chauffeur, "Where's my phone? I need a quick story, arrival vibes." The man produced it instantly. 30 seconds later, Vanessa had live-streamed an effortless entrance to her 100,000 followers. "First day back from Paris. Easton, I've arrived." Inside the registration hall, Sophie waited patiently in line while Vanessa breezed past the velvet rope. "Excuse me, miss," the registrar sputtered. "There's a queue." Vanessa flashed a laminated platinum invitation, board member's daughter, stamped in gold, and the woman fell silent. Vanessa's glossy lips curved. She turned just enough to spot the girl, with the patched bag 2 places behind. Their eyes met for a heartbeat. Why does she look so calm? Vanessa wondered. Most scholarship kids avoided direct eye contact. Yet Sophie's gaze held neither awe nor apology. Only a flicker of polite curiosity, as though she were cataloging Vanessa among the morning's details. It unsettled her more than open defiance. By 10 o'clock, homeroom was full. Mahogany desks formed perfect rows, each topped with gold-embossed leather planner. Mr. Townsend, the tall, bespectacled principal, delivered the traditional address about leadership, legacy, and limitless ambition. Vanessa occupied the seat beside the window. "Best natural lighting," she had declared, and her entourage filled the nearby desks. Sophie slipped into the last empty seat in the 3rd row. When Townsend announced a charity pledge drive, a yearly rite where students flaunted largesse in the name of philanthropy, Vanessa's hand shot up. "The Grant family will start the bidding with $50 million, she said, ensuring her voice carried. Gasps rippled through the room. Cameras clicked. Townsend beamed. "A generous start, Miss Grant. Does anyone wish to?" Sophie raised her hand. The room stilled, surprised she dared speak at all. "I'd like to contribute," she said. Vanessa crossed her arms, eyebrow arching. "I'm sure every naira counts." "How much?" Sophie opened her planner. Not the leather Easton gift, but a weathered notebook whose edges had turned soft with years of use. She wrote a figure, tore out the page, and handed it to Townsend. He adjusted his glasses, mouth falling open. "Miss Blake pledges $500 million, he announced, voice faint. Silence. Then derisive laughter burst from Vanessa's corner. $500 million. Vanessa repeated, savoring each syllable. "Sweetie, that's adorable. But jokes aside, charity events aren't karaoke. If you can't back it, don't sing." Sophie smiled, neither offended nor frightened. She reached for her phone, dialed a single number, and spoke softly. Mr. Bernard, please transfer the usual scholarship allocation to Easton's charity fund. Yes, the full amount. Thank you. She ended the call and folded her hands. The laughter faltered. Townsend cleared his throat. Miss Blake's pledge has been verified. Vanessa's jaw tightened. Her entourage exchanged confused glances. Who makes a call like that so casually? After class, the corridors buzzed with new theories. Secret lottery winner, daughter of a tech mogul in disguise, foreign royal. Vanessa forced a laughing shrug. Obviously she's bluffing, she told her friends, but doubt chipped at her certainty. At lunchtime, Ethan Carter appeared, tall, reserved, more comfortable in the background despite the quiet magnetism that followed him. He watched Sophie carry a simple tray of rice and stew to an outdoor bench. No security, no friends, no self-pity. Ethan found himself drifting toward her before he realized it. Mind if I sit? He asked. Sophie motioned to the space beside her. Up close, Ethan noticed faint scars on her knuckles, callous in a way no heiress's hand should be. He wondered what work had shaped them. Quite the entrance this morning, he said. You ride often? Everywhere, Sophie replied. Wheels are wonderfully honest. They take you only as far as your own strength allows. Ethan chuckled. And 500 million naira donations. Are those honest too? Sophie met his eyes without flinching. Depends on motive. Mine's simple. The Academy's rural literacy program needs expansion. She took a slow bite, as if the matter were settled. Before Ethan could ask more, a shrill voice sliced the air. Vanessa and her clique approached, designer bag swinging. Well, if it isn't Prince Ethan, Vanessa cooed, slipping an arm through his. You've been gone all summer. Paris missed you. Ethan disentangled himself. Good afternoon, Vanessa. She turned to Sophie. Charity queen, right? A word of advice. Numbers are fun, but receipts are reality. Donate the cash, or the whole school will see through the act. Sophie dabbed her mouth with a paper napkin. The transfer cleared an hour ago. You can ask the bursar's office. For a moment, Vanessa's confident mask faltered. She recovered with a brittle laugh. Fantastic. Then lunch is on you next time. She pivoted away, but not before Sophie noticed something glinting beneath Vanessa's silk shawl, a silver locket etched with a tiny crest, an oak tree entwined with vine. Sophie's breath caught. That crest belonged to the Blake estate, a seaside manor she had once called home before her mother's sudden death and her own quiet departure from high society. The locket was an heirloom, one of a kind, last seen on her late mother's dresser. She lowered her gaze quickly, hiding the storm behind her calm eyes. So that's where it went. Later, as the sun dipped low, Sophie unlocked her bicycle. In the reflection of a classroom window, she saw Vanessa slip into a chauffeured car and speed toward Easton's private residential quarters. The same villa Sophie's family had leased the school board years ago. The villa Vanessa now flaunted on social media. Sophie mounted her bike, heart steady despite the revelation. She pedaled off campus, mind whirring, not with envy or fear, but with resolve forged in silence. Truth will always outshine pretense. The gates closed behind her, but Easton Academy had felt the first tremor of a coming quake, one that would upend every delicate social ladder Vanessa Grant had so carefully climbed. And somewhere in the depths of Sophie's patchwork bag, beneath notebooks and worn pencils, lay a sealed envelope addressed to the Board of Governors, Easton Academy. She had planned to deliver it quietly next week. Now, she wondered, should she wait or let the letter speak sooner, revealing precisely who Sophie Blake really was and what legacy Vanessa had stolen before the first bell ever rang. The wheel, Sophie thought, still turning. The weekend air at Easton Academy was crisp and fragrant, stirred by the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant aroma of imported vanilla candles burning in the library annex. But the school grounds were unusually active for a Saturday. Vanessa Grant had personally orchestrated the gathering, a private, invite-only mixer for new freshmen at the Academy's archery field on the East Lawn. The rumor? A $100K prize for the winner of a friendly archery competition. Vanessa's plan was simple: embarrass Sophie Blake in public again. Only this time, cameras would be rolling, and Sophie's humiliation would be dressed in laughter, cloaked under the label of a game. Sophie arrived precisely on time, wearing the same Easton uniform she'd worn all week. She refused to dress for show. Her sneakers were clean, her hair neatly braided, and her expression as unreadable as ever. "Wow, Blake," Vanessa called with a sneer. "You're wearing your archery best, I see." The crowd laughed on cue. Students gathered near the shooting range lined with gold-rimmed targets. Ethan Carter stood a short distance away, arms folded, observing without comment. Sophie glanced around. Bow racks stood in rows. Most students held sleek custom carbon fiber bows with personalized accents. Beside the range sat a crimson velvet case. Vanessa strutted over and opened it with flourish. "Custom made in France," she announced. "Limited edition, handcrafted from Siberian ash wood. Designed for Olympic precision. There's only 5 in the world." The crowd oohed. She picked it up, cradling it like a violin. "Too heavy for peasants, oh," Vanessa added sweetly, casting Sophie a glance. "I'll use whatever's available," Sophie replied, her voice calm. She walked over to the practice rack and picked a simple fiberglass bow, balanced it, drew once. "This'll do." Jason Wells, watching from the sidelines, leaned toward another student. "She's either crazy or confident. I can't tell which." Vanessa stepped up to the line first. She struck a standard side pose, aiming carefully. Her arrow struck the red, close to the center, but not quite. The crowd cheered. Sophie followed silently. No dramatic entrance. No bow flourish. She stood naturally, feet aligned with the earth, fingers relaxed on the string. With one smooth pull and release, thwip, the arrow zipped through the air and hit dead center. Gasps. Silence. Then, "She must have practiced," Vanessa said through gritted teeth, laughing awkwardly. "Even blind squirrels find nuts." But Sophie had already knocked her second arrow. Another release. Another bullseye. Students began whispering. "She's not just lucky. That's professional form. She's done this before." Sophie's third shot came without hesitation. Bullseye again. Ethan let out a low whistle. His phone buzzed. A text from his assistant. Confirmed. Sophie Blake was junior champion in the UK Archery Federation 3 years in a row. Trained in Geneva under Master De Silva. Competed under an alias. What is she doing at Easton? He looked up, suddenly seeing Sophie not as a mystery, but as someone hiding in plain sight. Vanessa's face reddened. Her turn again. She tried to fire, quickly missed the center. Frustration built. She fumbled. "You okay, Jessa?" one of her friends whispered. "Fine," she snapped, just adjusting. On her final shot, her string slipped. The arrow veered wildly and landed outside the board. Soft laughter rippled from the back. Her eyes flared. "Obviously, it's the humidity," she said, waving the bow. "It's warped the strings." "No," Sophie said softly, stepping forward. "It's your grip. You're holding tension in your elbow. It throws off your follow-through." Vanessa turned to her, voice like ice. "Don't you dare correct me." "You asked," Sophie said. She placed the bow back on the rack and walked away, her back straight. Someone clapped. Then a few more. Jason started it. Even Ethan gave a small nod. Vanessa clenched her fists. The crowd was drifting towards Sophie now, genuinely curious, admiring. But what truly shattered Vanessa's control was what she saw next. Sophie removed her blazer for a moment to adjust her sleeve, and there, stitched just beneath the collar of her undershirt, was a monogram, SB, in the same thread style that once belonged to Blake family crest. Vanessa's breath caught. She turned to her phone, quickly pulling up the photo she'd once snapped during a visit to the Blake estate. There was again, in a family portrait, the very same embroidery on a child's collar. No, it can't be her. Can it? Vanessa's mind reeled. All this time, the way she walked, talked, even her archery form, it wasn't random. She had mocked the real heiress. And the real heiress hadn't said a word. Back in her dorm room, Vanessa tore through her wardrobe, yanking down a box from the top shelf. She opened it and held up a silver locket, the one with the oak tree and vine. The same one she had taken from the estate while visiting during a board dinner years ago. If Sophie recognized that locket, she couldn't let her talk. Meanwhile, in the Easton library, Sophie sat alone at a corner table, her laptop open but untouched. Her fingers trace a photograph, old, creased at the edges. A woman with warm eyes and high cheekbones smiled back at her. Her mother, once a renowned fashion designer, once the toast of Easton's alumni circles, once promised a permanent exhibit at the Academy's arts wing, until her designs were stolen, her reputation ruined, and the exhibit given to someone else. Sophie hadn't come to Easton to make friends. She had come to expose the truth. The archery competition had been a small step, but soon Vanessa Grant and the entire Academy would learn what it meant to steal from a Blake. The morning sun spilled over the Easton Academy Villa district like a golden blessing, bouncing off marble fences and iron-gated lawns. But inside the grand villa on Hawthorne Row, allegedly Vanessa Grant's family residence, a storm was brewing. Vanessa stood at the kitchen counter, arms crossed, scowling at a middle-aged woman in an apron. "You were told not to be seen, Marion," she snapped. "So why were you speaking to the delivery man out front like you own the place?" "I was just signing for the groceries, Miss Vanessa," Marion replied gently. Her voice had that trembling edge of someone used to swallowing injustice. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "People are watching. This house isn't supposed to have a cleaner with so much attitude. You're supposed to be invisible." Marion bit her lip, bowed slightly, and turned away. But as she did, she whispered under her breath, "Funny, that's what your mother said to me too, years ago. Now here I am, still scrubbing floors and still pretending." Vanessa heard her. She slammed the glass on the counter. "What did you say?" "Nothing, Mississippi." Vanessa stepped closer. "Just know your place. And remember, you still need the money. Or should I call the agency and tell them your daughter dropped out of university?" Marion went pale. "Please don't." Vanessa's lips curled. "Good. Then stay out my sight." She didn't notice Sophie Blake standing quietly just outside the back door, listening to the half-open window. Later that afternoon, the campus forum lit up with a scandalous video. A shaky clip, clearly taken from a distance, showed Marion tumbling down a short flight of stairs at the villa. Seconds later, Sophie appeared in the frame, reaching down to help her. But the caption was damning. "Heiress or menace." Sophie Blake attacked servant woman in fit of rage. Vanessa and her clique had done it. They posted the video under anonymous accounts and waited for the chaos to unfold. It didn't take long. Students began murmuring in the cafeteria. "She shoved her. Isn't that the girl who claimed to donate $500 million? What kind of heiress harm staff?" Jason Wells confronted Sophie by the lockers. "You didn't do that, did you?" "No," Sophie replied coolly. "It was an accident." Marion tripped. "She says you didn't push her?" "She would never lie," Sophie said, even under pressure. Jason hesitated, clearly unsure what to believe. But it was Ethan Carter who shut the rumors down. At lunch, he strode into the dining hall, pulled up the original security camera footage on the projector, and played it for all to see. The real video showed Marion slipping on a mop, left at the top step, no contact with Sophie at all. Gasps filled the room. Vanessa, seated at the corner table, nearly dropped her fork. Ethan turned to face the students. "A public apology is due to Sophie Blake. The truth matters, especially when it's twisted for entertainment." Sophie met his gaze and gave a small nod of thanks. She didn't need him to defend her, but she was starting to appreciate that he always did. Quietly, fiercely, but that wasn't the only secret unraveling. That evening, Mr. Bernard, the Blake family butler, arrived unexpectedly at the Hawthorne Row villa with 3 men in black suits. Vanessa opened the door, confused. "Why are you here?" "Miss Blake asked me to retrieve some of her family's belongings," Mr. Bernard replied politely. "This house was leased to the school board temporarily, but the lease expired last month." Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me?" "This villa belongs to the Blake estate," he continued, producing a document with the Blake crest. "Your family is not on any registered lease agreement." I'm afraid we'll need to collect the estate's heirlooms immediately. From behind him, the men began cataloging items. No, no, no. Vanessa panicked. This is my house. My parents. Do not own this property, Bernard interrupted firmly. Your mother visited once, years ago. I believe that's when a certain silver locket went missing. Vanessa froze. From the top of the staircase, Sophie descended, having entered through the side. You never asked whose house this was, Sophie said softly. You just claimed it, like the locket, like the guest list at every school event. Vanessa's voice broke. Why now? Why reveal this now? Sophie's gaze didn't waver. Because truth has timing, and mine arrived right on schedule. Vanessa laughed, bitter and cornered. Fine, you've embarrassed me. Is that what you wanted? No, Sophie replied. What I want is for you to stop pretending to be me. The next day, the headmaster summoned both girls to his office. Vanessa tried to spin the story, claimed ignorance of the lease, denied involvement in the stairway video. But the headmaster had seen enough. Miss Grant, he said solemnly, the board is reviewing your family standing. Your social privileges on campus are hereby revoked pending investigation. He turned to Sophie. And Miss Blake, while we respect your desire for privacy, your father, Mr. Liam Blake, has requested a formal introduction. The board would like to honor your mother posthumously at the upcoming anniversary gala. Sophie remained silent for a moment, then nodded. I'll attend. As the girls left the office, Vanessa hissed, You think this is over? Sophie smiled faintly. I think it just began. That evening, Sophie stood quietly in her room, brushing her fingers over an old notebook, her mother's designs, carefully sketched in ink and labeled by hand. She looked out the window at the moonlit campus. Vanessa had tried to humiliate her, tear down her image, claim her place. But Sophie was done hiding. The gala was coming, and with it, to reckoning. The corridors of Easton Academy had a heartbeat of their own. Whispers, glances, secrets tucked behind doors and within velvet blazers. And now, that pulse thrummed louder with the collapse of one name, Vanessa Grant. Her seat in the main dining hall sat vacant for 2 days. Her social media accounts, once buzzing with lavish photos and brand deals, were suddenly silent. The Grant family's PR team was scrambling to salvage their public image after news broke that Vanessa had been impersonating an heiress and squatting in a villa owned by the Blake estate. Yet Vanessa hadn't disappeared entirely. In the shadowed corners of the student theater, she met with Jason Wells, the scholarship student known for his quiet resolve. His face was pale, his hands fidgeting. I shouldn't even be talking to you, Jason said. Everyone's saying you'll be expelled any day now. Vanessa stepped closer. Jason, you want justice, don't you? For what? For being humiliated. For always coming second. Even when you try harder than the rest. Jason flinched. That's not Sophie's fault. Vanessa scoffed. Sophie Blake, the real heiress, the school's darling now. Let me tell you something, Jason. People like her don't live in our world. She'll never see you as anything more than a charity case. Jason looked away. You don't know that. I know this. Vanessa pressed, pulling out her phone. I have a plan. We make her look like what they all thought she was in the beginning, a liar, a fake, a social climber willing to sleep her way up. Jason stared at her. What are you saying? You'll lure her to the abandoned art gallery at the edge of campus, Vanessa said. Tell her you found something related to her mom's legacy. She'll come. And then you leave. I'll handle the rest. I just need a few compromising photos. Make it look like she was caught in a scandal. It'll be quick. She won't even know what hit her. The board won't wait for explanations. She'll be gone by morning. Jason shook his head. That's insane. Vanessa smiled. You said you'd do anything to protect your future. This is your chance to level the field. You help me. And I'll make sure the Grant Foundation sponsors your university application. And full ride to Cambridge. Guaranteed. Jason's lips parted, but he said nothing. That night, Sophie received a message. I found something you'll want to see. Meet me at the old art hall. at 9 p.m. Come alone. J.W. Her heart quickened. Jason? Why the secrecy? Still, the mention of her mother's legacy was enough. Sophie slipped on a light jacket and left her dorm, alert but curious. The old Easton Art Gallery was shuttered for years. Dusty skylights, wooden frames still holding fading masterpieces. Sophie stepped inside cautiously. Jason, she called. Silence. Then footsteps. From behind, a harsh voice she recognized. Miss me? Sophie turned. Vanessa, wearing a red trench coat, camera in hand, and a cold glint in her eye. I should have known, Sophie said. You should have, Vanessa replied. But you're too trusting, just like your mother was. Sophie's expression changed. What did you say about my mother? Oh, don't play innocent, Vanessa said, circling. Your mom built an empire of designs. Then one mistake, and it was all gone. Do you know who exposed her? Sophie's eyes narrowed. My mother, Vanessa sneered. She leaked the plagiarism claim to the press. Took your mom's spot on the Academy's board. And when your mom vanished, we all just moved in. Sophie stepped back, her fists clenched. So this wasn't about school or status. This was revenge for something my family never did. No, Vanessa hissed. This is about you. Coming here, daring to challenge me. You should have stayed in the shadows, Sophie. Suddenly, a door burst open behind them. Ethan Carter stepped into the room, followed by 2 security guards and Mr. Bernard. Vanessa Grant, Ethan said calmly. Put the camera down. Vanessa froze. You followed me? No, Ethan said. Jason came to me an hour ago. Told me everything. From a hallway. Jason stepped into view. Shoulders slumped, eyes guilty. I'm sorry, Sophie. I couldn't go through with it. Not after everything you've done for the school. You little rat. Vanessa screamed, rushing at him. But the guard stopped her, seizing the camera from her hands. You're finished, Ethan told her. We already have the footage. You just admitted to destroying Sophie's family name and planning a setup. Your expulsion will be effective by morning. Vanessa's eyes widened. You're bluffing. My family has already been notified, Mr. Bernard interrupted. Your mother is under investigation for intellectual property theft. I believe you'll find your family's influence isn't what it used to be. Vanessa crumbled. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the dusty floor, tears mixing with rage. Sophie stepped forward slowly. You could have been more than this, Vanessa. You didn't have to become your mother's legacy. I am her legacy, Vanessa whispered. I just wasn't born into it, like you were. News spread like wildfire across campus. Vanessa Grant expelled made the top trending story on Easton's forum. Sophie kept a low profile afterward. Those students began to approach her with respect instead of suspicion. Jason met her by the fountain 2 days later. I'm sorry, he said again. I really thought she'd help me. I didn't see how far gone she was. Sophie nodded. You did the right thing in the end. That's what matters. Ethan appeared a few steps behind. You're becoming quite the symbol around here, Miss Blake. Sophie smiled faintly. That was never my goal. No, Ethan said, but your mother would be proud. Sophie looked toward the sky, where clouds rolled like silent waves. Maybe she sees it. Maybe this is the beginning of restoring her legacy. But unknown to them all, something darker still lingered. That night, in a hidden server room beneath the Easton IT building, an administrator uncovered an anonymous account with hundreds of photos, videos, and forged documents linking Sophie to scandalous claims. All faked, all carefully timed. The last folder was scheduled to post during the anniversary gala. The name on the file? Project Swan Dive Phase 2. The Easton Academy gala was just days away, and the entire campus buzzed with anticipation. Tailors and makeup artists paraded in and out of dorm rooms. Press crews scouted camera angles near the marble stage. Rumors swirled that the Minister of Education and 2 A-list actors would attend. But Sophie Blake felt none of the excitement. Not because she didn't care, she did, but because something darker loomed. Mr. Bernard had pulled her aside after her final economics class. "We've uncovered a digital threat," he'd said grimly. "A smear campaign, scheduled to go live during the gala." Sophie sat rigid in the back corner of the campus cafe, heart thudding. Where did it come from? A hidden account linked to several school devices. It's full of falsified documents, deep fakes, photos of you with fabricated scandals. They're calling it Project Swan Dive. Someone meant to destroy your name permanently. She leaned forward, voice low. "Was it Vanessa?" "No," Bernard said. "This code is newer, smoother, professional." Sophie's stomach churned. Vanessa may have fallen, but the battle clearly wasn't over. On Thursday evening, Sophie received a private message. "I know who's behind Swan Dive. Meet me at the astronomy tower, 9 p.m. Come alone." Anonymous. The timing was too perfect to ignore, and too risky to trust. But she had no choice. If this information could stop the release, she needed it. She didn't tell Ethan. Didn't want him caught in the mess again. Sophie arrived at the astronomy tower just before 9. The building, once a beacon of Easton science, had been closed for years due to structural damage. Its spiraling staircase was rusted, and its top dome shuttered. She pushed open the door. "Hello?" No answer. Just as she stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind her. Metal scraped. "Locked." "Who's there?" Sophie called, heart racing. A single bulb flickered above. Shadows danced on the cracked concrete floor. Then, from the darkness, a voice echoed, smooth, taunting. Well, the real heiress comes running." Jake Rivers. Sophie turned, eyes narrowing. "I know who you are." "Oh, I'm flattered," he said, stepping into the light. He wore a silk vest and snake-like grin. "Shame we had to meet like this. But you see, Vanessa was sloppy. I'm not." Sophie backed toward the wall. "You're behind Swan Dive." Jake bowed theatrically. "I wrote the code myself." Elegant, isn't it? Everything timed to release as your name is announced at the gala. Scandal, betrayal, and disgrace, all served with dessert. "Why?" Jake's smile vanished. "Because people like you don't deserve the pedestal. You were born into money. Influence. You never earned it." "I lost everything," Sophie said, her voice calm. "I started over. Quietly. Alone. And I didn't ask for any pedestal. Still had it better than the rest of us." Jake sneered. "But it's not personal. Just business. I've already been paid." Then, from the stairwell, another figure emerged. Dressed in black, camera in hand. Lin Jia. Only now, she used her real name, Kira Lawson. "You," Sophie whispered. "You were expelled." "And yet here I am," Kira smirked. "Back for one final performance." "You're risking everything for this?" Kira's voice was venom. "Everything I built was for that school. For the status. And you came along and made me a joke." Sophie stood tall. "No, you did that to yourself." Jake interrupted, checking his watch. 10 minutes till upload. Get the shot. Kira raised the camera. "Just one photo, Sophie. You looking scared. Defeated. That's all we need." Sophie didn't flinch. But suddenly, the light snapped on. A spotlight illuminated the entire stairwell. And standing at the top of the tower, Ethan Carter, flanked by 2 officers and Mr. Bernard. "Don't move," Bernard barked. "We have you both on camera." Jake cursed. Kira dropped the camera. Sophie exhaled. Ethan descended the stairs slowly, never taking his eyes off her. "You followed me," she said softly. "I didn't need to," Ethan replied. "Jason tracked the dummy IP addresses. We set a trap." Kira lunged to the stairwell. But the officers grabbed her. Jake didn't resist. He just laughed bitterly. "Guess the rich always win, huh?" Sophie stepped forward. "No. Truth wins. Eventually." By morning, every student knew the names Kira Lawson and Jake Rivers. The Swan Dive program was dismantled, devices seized. The school board issued a formal apology to Sophie for the repeated attempts on her character. Sophie stayed in her dorm most of the day, avoiding attention. She wasn't ready to be celebrated. Not yet. But when she opened her door that evening, she found a letter taped outside. "You've handled all of this with grace. The gala is tomorrow. I hope you'll join me on stage, not as a victim, but as the woman who rose." E.C. She smiled, just a little. The next night, the gala transformed Easton's courtyard into a starlit wonderland. Chandeliers floated above the stage. Flowers draped from balconies. Dozens of media outlets stood ready with cameras. The final announcement neared, and our honored guest, a young woman whose strength and dignity changed the school forever. Please welcome Miss Sophie Blake. Applause roared. Sophie stepped onto the stage, not in a borrowed dress, but in her mother's final design, a satin blue gown embroidered with ivy, the Blake family crest hidden just beneath the neckline. As she spoke, her voice rang clear. Tonight isn't about wealth or reputation. It's about choosing truth over silence and courage over fear. Behind her, Ethan watched with pride. He didn't need to stand beside her. Sophie Blake could carry herself. And somewhere in the crowd, a girl whispered, "She really is the real heiress." The applause still echoed as Sophie Blake stepped down from the gala stage, her mother's blue satin gown sweeping gently behind her. Students parted for her like the Red Sea, no longer with mocking glares or hushed whispers, but with stunned silence and admiration. For the first time, Sophie saw them for what they truly were, kids like herself. Some privileged, some lost, some trying to find footing in a world that taught them status was everything. Mr. Townsend, the headmaster, met her at the foot of the stairs. "Miss Blake," he said, voice hoarse with emotion, "on behalf of the entire faculty, I want to thank you for your integrity. It's long overdue." Sophie nodded. "Thank you, sir, but there's still unfinished business." Ethan approached with 2 glasses of sparkling juice, offering one with a quiet smile. "You were brilliant." "I just told the truth," she said. "And you look terrifying doing it," he added, teasing. But before she could reply, a man emerged from the crowd, older, lean, wearing a dark tailored suit with the same ivy crest stitched on the pocket that adorned her dress. Her breath caught. "Dad." The crowd seemed to vanish in her mind. She took a shaky step forward. Liam Blake, the long-lost patriarch of the Blake estate, stood before her, silver at his temples, grief behind his eyes. "Sophie," he said softly, "you've grown into everything your mother dreamed." Tears welled in her eyes. "Where have you been?" "I've been preparing," he said, voice faltering. "After your mother's death, the betrayal from our closest friends, I went underground. I needed to rebuild what was taken, but I never stopped watching over you." Sophie's hands trembled. "You let me think I was alone." "I wanted you to be safe," Liam said, "and strong, to become who you are today, without my shadow. You did it, Sophie. You exposed the people who ruin our name, and you did it without me." Ethan stepped back, giving them space. "I should be angry," Sophie whispered. "I'd understand if you were," her father replied. "But if you'll let me, I'd like to help restore what your mother built, and you should lead it." The next morning, Sophie stood in front of the Blake estate gates, the real ones. No more squatting pretenders or stolen lockets. The mansion stood tall, ivy climbing its columns, sunlight bathing the entrance in gold. Inside, Mr. Bernard gave her a tour, pointing out renovations and items that had been carefully preserved. Her mother's sketchbooks, her father's private archive, sealed reports from the Easton board dating back 12 years. She opened one. Subject: Evelyn Grant. Proposal to replace the Blake design exhibit. Upon Mrs. Blake's untimely illness, I recommend Evelyn Grant's fashion line be installed in its place. We will cite plagiarism concerns, though unconfirmed. A press leak can provide cover. Sophie's jaw clenched. Her mother's legacy wasn't just ignored. It was stolen intentionally. "Who signed off on this?" she asked. Mr. Bernard pointed. "Chairman Langston, retired last year. His daughter, Alicia Langston, now holds a board seat at Easton." Sophie's mind whirled. Alicia Langston, head of the fashion committee. The same woman who once told Sophie that her mother's designs were charming but outdated. Ethan's voice echoed from memory. "There's always a deeper thread. Follow it. By Friday, Sophie requested a private meeting with the Easton board. She entered the conference hall not as a student, but as the heiress of the Blake Foundation. Alicia Langston, poised and polished in a crimson suit, smiled stiffly. "Miss Blake, this is unexpected. I'm here to submit an ethics violation report," Sophie said, sliding documents across the table. 12 years ago, your father and Evelyn Grant orchestrated the removal of my mother's collection and sabotaged her career using falsified plagiarism claims. The board members stiffened. Alicia's smile faltered. Sophie continued. "Here are original sketches, timestamps, and comparative designs, all predating Evelyn Grant's so-called line. Additionally, there's proof that your father signed off on a bribe to suppress an investigation." "Silence. Why are you doing this now?" Alicia snapped. "What does digging up the past achieve?" "Justice," Sophie replied, "and restoration." She stood tall. "I'm not asking for money. I'm asking that the Easton Gala Hall be renamed after my mother, Clara Blake, and that her final collection be properly displayed, where it always belonged." One board member cleared his throat. "You have the vote of the Blake estate." "Correct," Liam Blake said, entering from the side door. "And mine." Alicia turned pale. That night, Sophie and Ethan walked to the gallery wing where the exhibit was already being installed. "Do you think this ends it?" Ethan asked. "No," Sophie said, "but it begins it." "Good," he said, "because I have something to begin too." He pulled a folder from his coat pocket and handed it to her. Inside, a business proposal. Blake, Carter Foundation, Design, Philanthropy, and Youth Innovation Program. Sophie's eyes widened. This could change lives. "Let's change them together," Ethan said. "Not just for your mother's name. For those who never had one." Outside, beneath a star that once watched her ride a rusty bicycle to school, Sophie stood at the gates again. The same girl, but entirely different. She had been doubted, humiliated, cast aside. But now she wore the crown, and she'd earned every jewel. The grand ballroom at Easton Academy shimmered with golden light. Chandeliers sparkled above tables dressed in ivory linen, and strings of orchids cascaded from towering floor arrangements. Tonight was more than a gala. It was a rebirth. Camera crews lined the walls. Influencers posed by the Blake Foundation Step and Repeat banner. Board members, dignitaries, and students in satin and silk sipped champagne and murmured about the remarkable transformation of Sophie Blake. At center stage, beneath an arched backdrop adorned with her mother's emblem, Sophie stood in silence for a moment, her hand on the mic, her other hand gripping a velvet folder. The crowd hushed. "Thank you for being here tonight," Sophie began, her voice strong, clear. "You've heard my story by now. You've seen the headlines. But what you haven't heard is the truth that started it all." A ripple passed through the audience. My mother, Clara Blake, was once Easton's most beloved designer. She taught design in these very halls, mentored students, and donated her entire archive to the Academy. Until one night, she was accused of stealing her own work. Sophie opened the folder and pulled out 2 documents, enlarged on the screen behind her. On the left, a design sketch by my mother, dated January 12, 20XX. On the right, an identical design submitted to a Paris fashion house 6 months later by Evelyn Grant. Gasps erupted. "And here," Sophie added, "is the internal board memo approving the suppression of formal investigation signed by then Chairman Langston." Alicia Langston, seated in the VIP row, paled visibly. "I share this not to tarnish names," Sophie continued, "but to honor one. My mother deserved to be remembered not for the rumors that destroyed her, but for the brilliance that shaped this Academy's legacy." She turned, gesturing toward the unveiled exhibit behind her, a collection of Clara Blake's original gowns, now perfectly restored and spotlighted. The crowd rose to their feet in thunderous applause. A standing ovation. Ethan Carter watched from the side of the stage, proud, arms folded. Jason Wells clapped from near the back, his smile tinged with guilt but full of respect. Even Mr. Townsend dabbed his eyes. Sophie exhaled slowly, her heart steady, her voice finally at peace. But just as she began to step down, the ballroom doors burst open with a loud crash. Gasps. All eyes turned. Vanessa Grant, or rather, Kira Lawson, stood at the entrance, hair wild, makeup smeared, holding a USB stick high like a sword. "Don't clap for her," she screamed. "She's not innocent." Security guards moved toward her, but Sophie held up a hand. "Let her speak," she said calmly. Kira staggered forward, defiant. "You think you've won, huh? Just because you exposed my mother? Just because you're rich again?" She held out the USB. "This drive contains emails from your father, Liam Blake. Proof that he paid off several press outlets to keep your mother's mental health issues under wraps. She wasn't betrayed, she was unstable." A murmur moved through the crowd. Liam stood in the front row, jaw clenched. Sophie stepped forward, taking the USB gently. "May I?" Kira hesitated. "You're not going to deny it?" "No," Sophie said, "because it's true. My mother suffered from depression and anxiety. Years of pressure, criticism, and betrayal broke her in ways I still don't understand. But that doesn't make her weak. That makes her human." Silence. Sophie turned back to crowd. She was sick, but she was also a genius. And the illness didn't invalidate her brilliance. It just made her fight harder. Kira faltered, unsure how to respond. "And you," Sophie added softly, "use my mother's pain as your final weapon. But I won't respond with hatred. I won't humiliate you, because the truth is you've already done that to yourself." Kira's expression cracked. Tears welled in her eyes. She dropped the USB to the floor. "You don't understand," she whispered. "My mother never saw me as enough. I thought if I became the girl she wanted, rich, admired, she finally loved me." Sophie stepped closer. "She manipulated you just like she did mine." Security gently took Kira's arm. This time, she didn't resist. As she was escorted away, Sophie looked down at the shattered USB and said quietly, "Let this end now. No more pretending." Hours later, after the gala ended, Sophie sat on the terrace of the Easton ballroom. The stars above felt softer, closer somehow. Ethan joined her, jacket off, bow tie loose. "You were incredible," he said, handing her a warm cup of cocoa, even when she stormed in. "She just wanted what I wanted," Sophie replied. "To be seen, to be heard. You gave her that." Sophie nodded. "But I won't let her destroy what we built." She turned toward him. "You've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself." He smiled. "I didn't fall for Sophie the heiress. I fell for Sophie Blake, the girl on the bike." They sat quietly, the cool breeze brushing against their faces. Then Ethan leaned in. "I meant what I said about the foundation. Are you ready to lead it?" Sophie took his hand. "Let's do it. Together." 1 year later, a new building rose at Easton Academy, the Clara Blake School of Design and Innovation. Sophie, now creative director of the Blake Foundation, oversaw scholarships for underprivileged youth, while Ethan chaired the Youth Enterprise Board. Jason Wells was accepted to Cambridge, sponsored anonymously. And Kira Lawson? She disappeared from the spotlight. Some say she works at a small nonprofit, using her skills to help victims of cyberbullying. Sophie never spoke of her again, because some endings aren't about revenge. They're about peace. On a bright spring morning, Sophie stood outside Easton's main gate, now riding a sleek white bicycle with a Blake crest on the frame. A student passing by whispered to her friend, "That's her, the girl who changed everything." Sophie smiled, tucked a sketchbook into her bag, and pedaled forward, no longer hiding, no longer chasing, just being Sophie Blake.